I'm Chris Knudsen, and my grace story is about the power of prayer and healing. So as many of you know, I'm a physician here in the Springfield community, and one of the things that I love about my job is that I get to see firsthand the healing powers of God. And a lot of times we can't even explain it medically. And there's a number of stories that I could tell you about how this occurred in my patients throughout the years. And this morning I want to tell you about a time where God personally healed me. So it was about a year and a half ago that I started to have this discomfort in my right wrist, and I thought it would just eventually go away and didn't think much of it. But unfortunately, over the next couple of weeks to months, the pain just continued to get worse. And it got to the point where during procedures, I was having this burning discomfort and throbbing at night. And so the first thing that I did was go to see one of my friends that's a sports medicine physician. He did a very extensive exam and history, and it really didn't fit into any one category or disease process. So the next thing that we did was get an MRI, and the MRI came back and showed that everything was normal. There was no inflammation, all the tendons and bones and muscles, everything looked normal. So I started to get discouraged at this point. I mean, here I was still early in my career, and I'd spent a lot of years and countless hours getting to this point, and I just knew if this pain continued, I was not going to be able to do this job long term. So that then spiraled into just negative thoughts where, well, if I can't do this job, what am I going to do? How am I going to provide for my family? And I just felt like the enemy was taking control at that time. So I'm sure a lot of you can relate that it's when you have this feeling that whatever situation you're in, whether it's big or small, it gets to the point where it seems like it's worse or it's hopeless. And it's at that time where God steps in and He reminds us that we're His children, He loves us, and ultimately He's the one in control. So my story was no different. About the time that I'm having these negative thoughts was when I was in church and they make the announcement that the prayer teams are available. I didn't really think much of it, but as the next song started, I just felt this presence that was around me, and it's very difficult to describe, but it just felt like it was the presence of the Holy Spirit. And I felt this prompting or urging that I needed to be prayed for in that time. So I, without thinking, just go out of the row and down the aisle, and that morning it was Gary and Glenna Flockstra who were on the prayer team. And I tell them about my wrist, about the frustrations and it not getting better, and the need for prayer. And there's three things that happened next that I don't think I'll ever forget. The first is that Gary had a small vial of oil and he put a little bit on his finger. And although I hadn't told him where the pain was, he put the oil directly where the most intense pain was. The second thing that happened was as he started to pray, he said, Chris says, because you've stepped out in faith and are obedient, God will hear our prayers today. And that might not seem like much to someone else, but to me it was just confirmation that the Holy Spirit was there in that moment. Not only was He prompting me to be prayed for, but He was prompting Gary on what to say and what I needed to hear in that moment. And the third thing was that, although not instantaneous, over the next couple of days to week, the pain in my wrist just went away. And God is so good because, like I said, that was about a year and a half ago. And although I'm doing more procedures now than I ever have before, I still don't have any pain in the wrist. So things that I want you guys to get away from my story is that first, if in your own life, if you feel or hear that small voice or that prompting by the Holy Spirit, I just hope that you'll step out in faith in whatever way that might be for you. And if you do, I think you'll be amazed at what God can do next. The second thing is I hope you'll take advantage of the prayer teams that we have available. These are people in our congregation that just love God and want to be able to serve you in whatever prayer needs you might have. So that's my grace story. I appreciate you listening, and God bless.